From the Lean Enterprise Institute in Boston, this is the WLEI Podcast, where we share stories of people making the world better through lean thinking and practice. For more information about LEI, including how we can help you apply lean thinking, please visit lean.org.
My guest today is Sandrine Olivencia, author of the new book, Build to Sell, a guide to the principles of lean product and process development as applied to software. Sandrine has spent her career designing and building software, first in the waterfall model, and then beginning in the early 2000s as an enthusiastic adopter of Agile. And while Agile brought many benefits, she became a bit disillusioned with it, particularly its difficulty scaling and integrating with the rest of the business beyond software. So in this episode, Sandrine explains how she found a better way to build great products and lasting businesses in the world of lean product and process development. Over the course of the conversation, she explains the core principles she now uses to build what she calls product-led companies, or organizations that are laser-focused on delivering customer value. She talks about the importance of Gemba, or the Japanese term for the place where work is done, for understanding a customer deeply, as well as understanding the work involved in delivering value to the customer, and the importance of developing people at all levels of the organization and building a sort of apprentice model to develop future product leaders. And we also discussed the recent conversation around founder mode versus manager mode, and an alternative approach called lean management mode. I really enjoyed this conversation with Sandrine, and I think you will too, especially if you're involved with developing products. Hi, Sandrine. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me here today.
Hi, Matt. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So we always start off with a bit of background about our guest. So could you just walk me through your career and how you find yourself where you are today?
All right. I'm passionate about products. That describes me. And I've always been so ever since I started my career back in the mid-90s. Yes. In Ann Arbor, Michigan, believe it or not. Yes, I started in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Actually, in the early 90s, I started working with Zingerman's Delicatessen. I know Ari Weinsweig very well, and they taught me about quality and customer service and respect for people. And I didn't realize that until late, until like 20, 25 years after started my career, I realized how much impact that had on me. And surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, Ari Weinsweig, whom I know pretty well, was telling me a few years ago that he discovered lean as well, and he's applying lean thinking to his activities. Fantastic sandwiches. One had my name, by the way, way back when.
Oh.
Yes. And so I'm insisting on this because then the path was relatively easy, if I want to say. Once you've been trained that way, then you keep seeking those same values, those same, without realizing, right? So I liked back then. I liked the product. I liked the cheeses, but then very quickly I moved on to designing and conceiving and crafting technical products. Okay, because I'm come from the computer science world, the software development world, and for a long time I designed and built software programs, and then I moved to Michigan, and then I moved to San Francisco, and there I worked as a freelancer. I basically worked with very different companies, The Gap and Genentech and you name it, building different types of programs, using different technologies. So I have a lot of experience building products and high-tech products. And I've always had this passion for quality and collaboration and how to really create the best possible product that you're proud of, right? And it's only around 2001, 2002 that I started really enjoying it, when I discovered Agile in California and San Francisco. Agile methodologies are really widespread in the software world, as you know. And they've been so for the past 20, 25 years. But back then it was this breath of fresh air, because for years I felt that I'd been stuck in these rigid step-by-step processes that felt like tunnel mode, we still call that today waterfall methodology, right? Where you sticking to the plan and producing reports was actually more important than delivering a great product and value to customers. And that was horrible. It was so bureaucratic. And Agile was a breath of fresh air because it really emphasized product quality and scalability and collaboration, and even with a human touch. You see what I'm saying? So you didn't feel like you were just a pawn in a big bureaucratic machine system. I mean, but you really, it felt like, oh, okay, that's what I've been looking for. People like me seeking this gathered, and they built this manifesto, and they really hit they really hits the nail in its head, because it's really what we were all looking for. So I really enjoyed Agile, and I discovered it when I worked with Genentech on a large project, and I was fascinated by how I was now able to speak with users directly. I'm like, wow, what a concept. People forbade me to do so. It's not your job, they would tell me, right? And really interact with them and be able to speak with my colleagues who are not like my immediate colleagues in the development team, with marketing people and finance people. I'm like, wow, all these people around in the same room for like an hour and a half, and we can actually talk to each other like normal human beings. So that was fantastic. But then several years later, about like 2007, 8, I would say, I started noticing some limitations, right? Agile, though it's great, it's still great for building software, right? It wasn't enough to create products that drive business growth, because it lacked the strategic recognition, right? We clashed with other parts of the organization. We were just like a bunch of developers building great software, but we were not recognized by the rest of the organization. And so we didn't have the impact that we wanted. So it was my personal experience. And I realized soon enough that I was not alone.
Yeah, it sounds like, we've been having conversations with quite a few people in the software space, and they're saying more or less the same thing, where Agile is really effective for developing products, but it's not so effective as a sort of enterprise management system,
Right.
or it's difficult to integrate Agile teams into the rest of the organization. And most companies, software companies, when they get started, their ambition isn't to remain small. The ambition is usually to get really big. And at some point, you reach a sort of asymptote where the methods that allow you to get that growth stall out, and you need something else to make a larger enterprise continue to grow. Is that kind of what you experienced? Is that sort of what you were seeing, or what you experience even now?
So yes, this is pretty much what I experienced as well. But there was more. As Agile spread, it lost some of its original spirit. That craftsmanship spirit. that love of the product, of the work well done, of scalability, of creating products that really can be maintained, and the love of the code. You see what I'm saying? And
That was
it
the other thing.
became,
That was the other thing that
yes.
we heard. Why do you think that happens?
Well, I have my theory. It became a delivery process, right? And not sometimes a good one, sometimes not such a good one. And I believe that's because consultants appeared. And they started selling it, and they picked what was convenient, what was easy, and what they understood. When you put together a bunch of people in the same room, and they pair program, and they take the software and they try to experiment with different solutions. It's messy. You don't know how to standardize that. You don't know how to create a system out of this, right? So they picked what they saw, which is the same with Lean, right? We see the tools, we see the tip of the iceberg, and then we go with it. And that's what they saw. They saw the sprints, they saw the rituals, they saw the routines, they saw the people. Good, they kept some good stuff about it, right? But they lost that spirit. The quality aspect pretty much disappeared. I mean, I don't want to be that drastic, but frankly, I want to be, because I'm depressed to see Agile teams struggling with quality all the time.
Especially in Lean, I feel like you often see companies lead with the tools or the process without any thought as to, what's the actual problem this is solving. And if there's no connection between the two, it can grow stale very quickly. Usually you want to start, what problem are we trying to solve? And that's what it sounded like, when you were sort of excitedly talking about Agile, talking with customers, you're engaged in developing a product that is going to help somebody.
That's correct. That's correct. And then when you get into this, what I call feature frenzy mode, right? I like to call it feature frenzy because people get into like this frenzy of building features and features and features, and the more features the better, and then we'll try and then we'll see what works, right? Then you stop focusing on value. You just try, you just hope that something is going to work. I call it the Hail Mary approach. And so who cares about quality, right? We'll see later. But then later is too late, because we never have time to do it. So yeah, I think that a big problem is that it was popular very fast, and then the consultants turned it into a delivery machine, a feature delivery machine. They kept some good stuff, they lost some good stuff.
So you've just written this book. It's called Build to Sell, and my interpretation of the book is sort of you're taking thinking that was developed inside of Toyota, particularly around product development. We call that lean product and process development. And it's sort of a reflection on how those ideas apply to the software space. Challenging thing to do, because Toyota is a manufacturing company. Making cars is not like making software. But I was struck by the similarities between what appeared in the book and the ideas that we preach when it comes to lean product process development, or LPPD. Can you share a little bit about how you even came across those ideas and what attracted you to them?
It was obvious that, it became obvious that there was a connection between Agile and Lean. And actually the 4 founders, if I may say, had been inspired by Lean. They'd read some of the books, right? So, because I'm a curious person, I decided to go back to the source and dive into lean manufacturing, literally. I said, if the source is manufacturing, then I'll go back to the source and try to walk that path myself and understand maybe what we missed. Maybe we missed something, or maybe let's go back to the source and then revisit the whole thing. I wanted to really grasp product development as it was meant to be done, or as it was meant to be practiced, right? So I read books like The Toyota Way, the wonderful Toyota Way. That was my first Lean book, as a matter of fact. I read The Lean Manager. I read, of course, The Machine That Changed the World. And at first I was like, whoa, I don't understand everything. But that's okay. I like a challenge. But these were my guides, really. And so I started seeking more. I went to conferences. I became members of institutes, Lean institutes. And I met a person who became my sensei, and today I work with a lot, as a matter of fact. That's Michael Ballet in France, because by that time I'd moved to France from California. And so it was not by chance, but at a conference I met Michael Ballet, and we've been working together ever since, in one instance or another, if I may say. But he's not the only one. Of course, I've been working with other people in the community, including you guys, as a matter of fact, at the Lean Institute, Enterprise Institute. Yes.
What would you say are the kind of core tenets of, what are the key or the things that you felt like unlocked something for you vis-a-vis Lean product and process development versus Agile? What were the distinguishing factors that made you so compelled to not just learn about it, but to spend several years? I mean, you're in the process of writing not just one book, but a few books.
Right. The thing is, it took me a long time to understand many things. I mean, Lean is a path that you walk, right? It's not something you don't pick up a book and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it, that's it. No. It's like everything, right? It's something that it takes really practicing to unlock one secret. It's not secret, but one epiphany after another, right? It's like one epiphany after another, and you're like, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. And so it was not instantaneous. At first, what I noticed was, there's it's about the product. I really saw that, and I read that in between the lines, because I was looking for that. So I was reading these books, not just on the surface, but I was looking, okay, what do they say about the product? Because that was my quest, right? And I found it in between the lines sometimes. Between the lines, because it was not so obvious at times, but I'm like, oh, it is all about the product. And I realized that Toyota's view, that's what I understood like years later, is Toyota's view of Lean. It's not Lean manufacturing, Lean in services, Lean in whatever. Of course, it was organic the way they did it, right? But I think eventually they get to a point where, I mean, from the beginning, it was always about the product. And everything else that you put around it is just enablers. Manufacturing, design, accounting, admin, support, ops, logistics. They're all enablers for the product, to make the product something fantastic that will really hit the mark, that creates value, that has a great impact on society. And that's what I read, and I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And the second thing that surprised me, and that though, I discovered it way later when I started going to Japan to Toyota factories, that it was about learning to learn, as a matter of fact, continuously learning and teaching people to learn and to resolve problems. I was like, wow, that's agility. That's what is Agile. Agile is really being able to react naturally and serenely to a new problem that you've never encountered, and do it everywhere in the organization. Do it 100 times, 1,000 times. And if you do that, you create agility. And that's when I realized that's agility. And Lean taught me that. But it took me about 15 years to grasp that. Maybe next year we'll learn something else.
Probably. Well, I'm struck by, I always make this point. Toyota's been doing this since around like 1952-ish. and they're still learning how to do
Right.
it. And I am amazed when you go to those Toyota plants that every single person in one of those factories is engaged in problem solving, meaningful problem solving toward improving the product or improving customer value vis-a-vis the product. So quality, for instance. Everybody's pursuing the exact same goal with a kind of rabid intensity that you don't really see anywhere else. And I agree that makes them enormously agile because they're able to adapt to challenging situations very quickly. And it's not just a few people who can adapt. It's everybody who's capable of adapting because the day-to-day production process is adaptation.
Yes.
So,
And actually, if I may, sorry, Matt, I just wanted to say, when I go to a Toyota factory, the assembly line, as a matter of fact, where you see the cars moving down the line, you see team leaders and managers running around like fixing problems. You see that ballet of operators, be very self-confident about their, what they need to do, and what always amazes me is that I realize this is not about the flow or the process. It's all about the product. It's all about the product. Those people, they're learning to build the product one tiny part at a time, or big. They're learning to build the product. They're contributing to building the best possible product. It's a whole machine, a company. This company is a whole machine to build fantastic products. And it doesn't only happen in the engineering department. And that's what tech companies should learn. We need to learn from Toyota. We need to learn to do this. We need to learn to this great concept that designing and building a great product happens even in the accounting department. When I'm creating value, when I'm creating the invoice, I'm supporting the customer, I'm paying and I'm whatever it is. When you're building the product, you're designing the product, then value happens everywhere. And those operators, actually, they are building the product. They're contributing to the product. And that's what amazes me. That's how I see companies now. I don't see them as processes and delivery processes and whatnot. I see them as everybody doing their part so the best products reaches the customer. And that's, what a concept, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this amazes me.
It's a really good point that it's not about the process because you often see companies, particularly those relying on automation or heavy equipment, where the product is made to fit the process because it feels difficult to change things. In some cases, it genuinely is. But Toyota, it's the opposite. You're constantly changing the process in service to the product.
That's correct.
That
is correct.
It's a very different way to think about things.
Yes.
But so, let's keep talking about product, because in your book, you talk about the idea of product-led companies. And early in the conversation, we were talking about how you had experienced the kind of bureaucracy nightmare that can exist inside of a waterfall system. So how do companies avoid that? How can you have it both ways, where you can grow big and provide great products to lots of people without killing the spirit that created the great product in the first place? How do you manage to do that?
Well, the bridge to go from one side to the other is high and long. It doesn't happen overnight. Let's put it that way. And I've been seeing this for years, because this is what I've been trying to do. And when I wrote this book, I was trying to build that bridge, right, for people to cross. And even with the book, they're still like, well, but how do I do that? I understand what you're suggesting, and that's fantastic. But how do I get there? From where I am now, it's complicated, politics and we're big and lack of money, whatever, everybody's got their own constraints, their own complexities, and that's what I'm saying. The bridge is the bridge that we need to build is something that it's not a miracle. We're going to need to learn. The person, the CEOs, the founders, the PMs who are going to want to do this, it's going to be a path they're going to need to take. It's not going to be instantaneous. And I'm not saying, oh, it's going to take 10 years. No, I'm not saying that. Far from it. It can go fast. It depends on how fast a learner you are, right? Because it's all about learning. It's not about like magically deploying some tools or whatever. And that's what I was telling Julie, and Julie discovered very quickly. Julie, CPO of medical, like in the article I mentioned her, the CPO and partner of Motive Medical Intelligence Systems in San Francisco, right? And she said, I realized, I took the book and I started looking at all the practices and tools and how I was going to deploy that. And I realized, no, I really need to do this with them, right? Learn and practice and then see what that means in our own context. And I think this is how people are going to need to do this. So of course, if they have help, then good for them. If they don't, they can still walk the path on their own, obviously, right?
What would be some practical steps? I mean, if you were somebody like Julie, you're an executive inside of a large, growing tech organization. What are some like principles, practices that you'd want to try to begin implementing?
Well, there's several. Many, if I want to say, right? But before I tell you this, I would like to explain what I mean by a product-led okay. Tech company. If you're okay with that, because I didn't answer the whole question, and to me, and that will actually start answering the second question as well. So a product-led company is one where the original founder remains actively involved in the product. Okay? That's Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb, he's talking about founder mode. He's like, I went from my manager mode from founder mode to manager mode, to delegating everything and empowering people, and to going back to founder mode because I realized my company was going haywire and I needed to go back to the field and handle things again, have a little bit of control because things were going crazy. Quality was going down, we're losing customers, whatever, right? And so he realized he needed to go back to the field. But the way he's doing it, I don't know, I'm not there in his company to see exactly how he's doing it, but the way he's saying he's doing it may take him back to command and control. So we got to be careful with that. So yes, you need to remain actively involved in the product, in the field, not just the product, because he's saying he's got this big roadmap, a single roadmap for the whole company, and then every day he's like going to see with each PM what needs to be done. And so he's really controlling. And I can understand why he would want to do this, of course. But this is where lean is powerful, because lean would allow you to be both a founder and a manager at the same time. So, but it provides the tools. So I'm not about to describe all the tools because it would be pointless. But basically, to become to remain in founder mode, to keep that term, right, that expression, then what lean proposes, and when I say lean, is lean product, lean. I don't like to make the difference between lean and lean product design, because, like I told you, it's about applying lean thinking to the product is similar, right? So to remain a founder, or to be in founder mode, you need to be to lead from the ground up. right? This is what we do in lean organizations, right? The top leader goes to the Gemba. The Gemba is the field, right? But they don't go there with the intention of controlling or telling people what to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
They go there with the intention of uncovering their own misconceptions about reality, okay, and their own theory of to learn about their own model and theory about how the company should be running, and if it's really running the way they think, and maybe they're wrong. It should not be running that way. So really challenging their own potential misconceptions, challenging through seeing what reality it really is, but also engaging everyone in finding solutions, in trying new things, resolving problems, and developing their own skills, right? And turning more into coaches, quote unquote, right? Than command and control managers, which is what Brian Chesky calls the manager mode, where you hire fantastic people, whatever that means. Everybody's fantastic when you give them the means. Really good people. Well, they're people with the right skills. So I'm pushing it a little bit, but the right skills, the right behavior, the right mentality. You hire, you put them in the right place, you provide them with all the right processes and methods, and then you get out of their hair. You empower them. Oh, right, you empower them. So these are the two extremes. And Lean provides a middle ground, right? And so, yes, depending on where you are in your company, where your company is, if you're at the beginning, trying to find your market fit and you're not quite sure about your product, or if you found a fit and then you're like, okay, what next? I don't know how to scale. Or you've scaled and now your company's a mess because you went too fast, and you stayed in your manager mode and you don't even know what's happening anymore. Based on where you are, then you will use one tool or another to start. That's what I'm saying. So it's not a linear process, which can be disturbing, but that's how I designed the book. I designed the book so that there is some sort of roadmap, if I may say, right? There is a roadmap where you start by going to the Gemba to understand what problems people and customers are facing, to understand where the value opportunities are. Of course, you start with this. You're not going to start with developing the software before you do that. So yes, there is a roadmap, and I'm providing this high-level roadmap in the book. But then the book is, I wrote the book so that you could go, and I realized this is exactly what people do, so I'm really excited about it, to go to one chapter and say, I want to understand how to do this because this is my problem today. Right? And so, for instance, Julie's problem, or the problems that she felt was pressing and she wanted to deal with first, was to get their team to stop thinking in terms of just delivering features, but start thinking more about customer value, develop this customer focus. She realized that they had built the perfect delivery machine, but she needed to put some meaning back. You said that. What problem we're trying to resolve? What is value? Where is it hard for them? Where are not keeping our promise, right? And so she started naturally using the Gemba tools that I'm providing in the book. How do we actually analyze customer complaints with the lean twists? And not just, first of all, taking each customer seriously and not taking them as like a data set, right? Treating each one very seriously, understanding their problems in their own context and circumstances, their own emotional and social and functional complexities, right? And then try to understand how their perception of what the product should do for them is different from the designers, the engineers' perception, how they originally designed the product, and why did we do it that way? There is a reason for it. Is that a misconception, or is the market evolving? So asking themselves these kind of questions, and that's what she started with. I have other companies that are starting with target costing because their model is not viable. And every time I do this exercise with startups who are like, oh, we're not profitable, we don't know how to scale. We do this target costing exercise and we're like, whoa. I have some companies that have completely pivoted and they realized that their main product was totally not viable. Their model was not viable, and so they had to really change some things drastically, or maybe focus on another product that they had put on the back burner, and they're like, wow, this one is interesting. It combines value, high value, and high margin. You see what I'm saying? So it depends on where you are, basically.
Just to go back to the founder mode conversation with Brian Chesky. I thought that was a curious thing. Airbnb is a fairly mature company now, and like you said, we're not there. It's hard to say what's actually happening. But he did say things like, I'm not going to, Airbnb is not going to do or grow beyond what I'm capable of overseeing or something like this. And
right.
For me, that sounded a little bit not so good for a company of that size and maturity, because presumably over the past several years, they've developed people who are capable of solving problems that Brian Chesky shouldn't have to necessarily oversee, and he seems to have lost confidence in that, or maybe he never had confidence in it. It's hard to say, but a core feature of lean thinking is developing people. A huge part of this is to develop capability throughout the organization, from the frontline level all the way up to the executive level. And in the article that you contributed to our Design Brief newsletter recently, you talked about a kind of apprenticeship model,
right,
that really is focused on having a kind of growth pathway for people in the organization, so that they develop a certain way of thinking, this product thinking, and the skills to get there. What do you think? It seems, in talking to people in the tech industry, that part is kind of missing. You don't see a whole lot of discussion around people development. Why do you think that is, or am I completely wrong about that?
Well, I mean, they understand the need to develop skills, of course. They're not completely, they're not talking about, it's not like they're ignoring that, of course. They send people to training, it is a topic. For instance, in Agile, or at least extreme programming, we did a lot of pair programming. And that was not with the intention of developing our skills, but of doing better quality, of discovering new things. So it's not completely, it's not completely true that the tech firms don't develop their people, but they're not doing it. They're doing it the traditional way, right? They send them to like training sessions or training or programs, which you need that. Of course, you need that. But beyond that, no, they're not going to do it. Why? Because when you train people, they're not producing. And in startups, especially startups, often there's pressure to deliver, especially the startups that are backed up, by funding. There's this pressure often from investors to deliver the product fast. And I can understand that. Of course, you need to beat the market. Everything changes every 5 minutes in the in the high-tech world, right? In the digital world, especially. So yes, of course, you need to go fast, but so of course they hesitate. They prefer to go and hire top-notch people, whatever that means, or so they think, right? Put them in boxes and say, okay, now you do the job and you go fast. Of course, it's a caricature, but it's not far from reality. Why it is that we don't think, I did not know that before I started studying Lean. Lean actually opened my mind, opened this perspective that true agility comes from developing people, making them smarter, making them better thinkers, making them better problem solvers, and adapt on their own to new situations. I mean, I did not understand that until I read Lean books, until I started talking. No, really, it's it's really unique, and I think that it's gaining ground, of course, even among entrepreneurs. But the difficulty that people have in adopting Lean today, and I'm going to be honest with you, is that part. Is that when people are not delivering, then we're wasting our time. There's a gigantic misconception that we need to break. Some people are starting to get it. A lot of people are starting to get it.
Because, I mean, developing people doesn't happen overnight. So can you reconcile those two things, especially for small or companies that run very quickly, the need to produce very rapidly with the sort of long-term vision to develop people? I mean, because there may be no long-term for a company if they don't deliver a product.
Because when you develop someone, that doesn't mean that you have to teach them everything at once. First of all, right? You take one problem at a time. And if you have a problem now, then you learn to resolve that problem now. So it's having an immediate impact and effect on the company, and you developing people at the same time. So this is what's great about Lean, is that it's going to train people on things that matter now. You know, it's the problems that we discover that tell us what we need to learn. And so we can train ourselves and train people one small problem at a time. And that is not that complicated to do. And it doesn't cost that much money. So we need to show them how to do this.
Not to keep bringing it back to Toyota, but that's exactly what they're doing inside of a Toyota assembly plant or inside of product development. They're solving, one problem at a time. And if you read about the history of the development of the Toyota production system, right now we can see it as the complete house. At the start, there was no house at all. It was just people solving problems over time. And the collection of those solutions to some pretty gnarly problems has built that house. But it was solving one problem at a time that led to the construction of that thing. And I think that is a good way to think about it. How do you solve just one problem at a time, and how do you get people engaged in a problem-solving process?
That's correct. And imagine in a company with 500 people, if everybody's doing it every day.
Right.
I mean, it's the multiplication factor that is the key to success.
Well, especially in software, we have, I would think, usually some very bright people who are working. And, software development is really about problem solving. I mean, the nature of the work is problem solving. And so you'd think you'd be able to develop some incredible longevity with just everyday problem solving happening across the organization.
The thing is, when it happens, it's magical. I mean, you see immediately results. And that's the thing, the misconception about one problem every day, one at a time. But we have 50,000 problems every day. I said, train yourself to resolve one this way. And then slowly but surely, you're going to start resolving the others the same way, right? I said, no, you're not resolving only one problem a day. You're learning to resolve a single problem a day this way, meaning applying scientific problem solving, where you're not going to just do something. You're just going to try to first understand what's really happening, where the problem is coming from, where our gaps in the process, especially not the physical processes, but in our heads, and what do we need to change? Is it working? What can we try? Do we need to create a new standard here? How do we actually teach others to something similar without like imposing? I mean, this is the reflection that we have with each problem that we're going to resolve. And picking the right problem to resolve is also important. And that's where Lean is helping. And when I say Lean, I said Lean product design and Lean manufacturing, if you want to use that word, but TPS and Kanban and whatnot. They're all visual management tools to show you, and even in my book, Build to Sell, I'm providing visual management tools and other techniques to unearth the problems, to show you the right problems to resolve so that you can orient the teams towards the more meaningful pressing problems to get like a more immediate effect and impact, right? So that's that. Secondly, let's face it, it's not all like a fairy tale. We have some techniques that we can learn. We can build scaffolding. So, for instance, when Julie is wanting to teach her PMs to take every feedback from a customer feedback or complaint seriously, and teach them how to see value. Instead of just or either ignoring the problem or reacting and say, oh, we're going to do this, then I give her a scaffolding, like a tool. She has a tool that it's guiding her team, some sort of visual tool, with like a few columns where she's going to say, okay, what is the complaint? So she puts it on the wall. She says, what is today's complaint, right? So who's the customer? What is it that they're really trying to do? What is their context? So a scaffolding, very simple visual management tool that is going to teach them to develop this way of thinking. The same way Kanban is teaching us to detect stagnations early. The same way Andon is teaching us to detect quality problems early, etc. They're all visualization techniques to guide us in finding the right problem and orienting, providing direction to people in the field on the Gemba so that they can tackle the right problems. And then we teach them how to resolve that in a scientific manner, not to jump to conclusions too soon, to really grasp what's really happening. And that's how you develop people. In manufacturing, in product design, it's the same thing. So in operations, we're going to, or manufacturing, delivery processes, we're going to train team leaders to do that and managers. In product design and development, we're going to train chief product engineers to do that, who are going to learn to embody the craftsmanship spirit of the original founder. And that's how Brian Chesky actually could remain grounded, if I may say, in reality, but without control. By transferring this know-how and this spirit, this craftsmanship spirit, to the next Brian Chesky of the company, if I may say, for lack of a better word. And that's what I call chief product engineer. So there's some specific roles that are not necessarily attached to their skills or experience, more like their behaviors and their capacity to collaborate with others. And we have to find those people. And when we start teaching people those lean tools of resolving problems, then they start emerging. And these are the ones that we want to train. And that's a good way to start empowering people while staying, grounded in reality and avoiding to control the situation.
It's
if that makes sense.
Developing problem solve. Trying to, founders always start with enthusiasm for a product because they see it solves a problem. I think that's what gives people excitement, a sense of excitement. And how do you create a similar sense of excitement in the skills in the whole organization around seeing problems and solving problems? And I think that's the challenge any leader of an organization has, and it's not so easy to do, but I think that was a pretty good summary of at least how to get started. with it?
Well, now we've said all this. Okay, so where do you start? Where do you go from there, right? That's a big question. So of course, pick up a book is always a good start. Pick up a book, join the community, start talking to people. Maybe get yourself a sensei or a coach if you want to go any further to discover what this what there is on the other side. But I would actually provide, if I may, I want to provide 3 strategies. Okay. The first one is Gemba, Gemba, Gemba. Okay, Gemba for those listeners who don't know what this is.
Place where the work is done.
That's exactly it. So it's the field, basically. It's where people are building the products or designing, where people are even like building invoices, or part of the whole value streams, where customers are using, buying, searching, recycling our products, where our partners are working to deliver their parts of the service of the product. So this is Gemba. Gemba, Gemba, Gemba. So whether you're the founder, the CEO, the head of product, marketing, sales, or else, right? When was the last time that you actually spent some time on the Gemba? Your clients, your people, trying to understand how right or wrong you are about the bets you're making. And every time I ask this question, it's complicated. That is what I used to, from the very beginning in the 90s, that's what I loved. And I did not know the word Gemba at the time. But this is what I love, being on the Gemba with the people, understanding their real problems, engaging in meaningful discussions about their problems. It creates mutual trust on top of it. And we're always wondering why people don't collaborate well, all the conflicts that we create in the company and all that. Gemba, Gemba, Gemba. It will actually provide the right insights. It will create the right connections in your company, and you will develop the meaningful relationships with your people. So, and so there are another question that you can ask yourself. Are you treating each of your customers with genuine care? Or you're just seeing them as data points? And I tell you, in tech, they love data. I'm not saying we don't want data, but Gemba, Gemba, that's the first one. The second one is, don't just build perfect processes that you ask your people to follow. Okay? These processes will be obsolete as soon as you design them, because the processes are built based on previous problems that we've experienced. And companies, especially in high-tech world, they're facing new problems every day, every minute of the day. So you need to build the conditions, processes that are flexible, and we need to build the conditions to teach people to adapt the processes that they see fit to continue to remain agile, right? That's and to resolve one problem at a time. So that's strategy number 2. And 3, finally, establish a mentorship, what I call a mentorship or apprenticeship system, to pass on the strong customer-centric culture and a strong craftsmanship or artisanship spirit. And for that, I suggest training the next generation of chief product engineers in the company who will champion this mindset using a book like Build to Sell, like Julie's doing, break down the organizational silos and keep the original day one spirit alive as the company grows. Actually, that's basically the three main strategies that I would suggest and recommend if you want to walk that bridge.
Well, it's a good place to end it. Thanks for joining me here on the podcast, Sandrine. And everybody go check out the book, Build to Sell. We'll put a link in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much, Matt.
I'd like to thank Sandrine for joining me here on the podcast, and thanks to you all for listening. Until next time.